A metronome doesn't care whether or not we know how to use it. It just starts going. And if we haven't developed any skill in using the tool, it points that fact out to us over and over and over again 60 times per minute. That's a lot of proof of failure, and it can leave us feeling like we're never going to be able to get it. The good news is that it's easier than it seems, and it's totally attainable by anyone. We just have to approach it a little bit differently than we might think. Welcome back to the channel. My name's Chris. Today we will learn how to use the metronome. Now, guitarists specifically have a hard time with the metronome, and I think the biggest reason for this is what I would call cognitive overload. Guitar players have a hard enough time just making sure their hands are in the right place and they're synchronized, right? Let alone trying to keep track of a metronome that's banging away in the background that we actually don't even know how to use. It's incredibly important that whenever you get a new tool, you understand the context of how to use it. For example, a circular saw and a measuring tape are both tools, but we don't use them the same way. They don't do the same thing. New ideas and new things to learn can be a little challenging for the self-educating guitar player. Is this important? Is this something I should be learning? I help guitar players through that kind of thing all the time, and I do it in my online guitar academy called The Studio. The Studio is an online community platform that also features rich educational content. There are dozens and dozens of curated lessons. I teach deep dive online workshops. I host live QA events, and I even host live guided practice sessions. Guitarists in The Studio can post their progress on whatever they're working on and get direct feedback from me. Now, I know that the idea of an online guitar academy might not be for everybody. That's why I offer a 7-day free trial, so you can head on in there, take a look, right? You get access to everything. You can take a look at all those lessons, maybe even finish a course or make a friend or two. If you decide it's not for you, I totally understand. If you do decide to stick around, I look forward to working with you. A metronome is a measuring tool. It does one thing. It marks the passing of time. Now, there are some metronomes that are super advanced, some that are super simple, but that primary thing that it does, marking the passing of time, that's its primary value. Now, very much like a measuring tape, we need to understand what the units of measure are before we can actually measure anything with the metronome. And just like a measuring tape, a metronome can measure different units of measure, right? Like inches to centimeters, quarter notes to half notes, which makes it even more important to understand the context of how the thing is working so we can understand exactly what we're measuring. We're going to focus on one simple thing: how to lock into that passing of time, right? How to understand what that click means, how to lock into it and count it, right? And how to understand where we are in time according to the metronome. That's it. We're not going to do any fancy theory, nothing like that. In fact, we're not even going to have a guitar in our laps. Let's zoom in and tackle this together. Okay, I've got my metronome here on my phone. This one's called Impulse. It's actually quite advanced, but I love how it's got a very, very sort of simple layout. I've got it set to 60 beats per minute, which just means it's going to click once per second. And as you can see, there are 4 dots here. Each one of these dots represents a beat, and you can see that the first one is yellow. When I start this metronome up, you're going to hear that this makes a different sound than the other 3. Now, we're not going to get into a lot of theory about 4/4 time and all that stuff, but in general, in modern music, most of what we listen to is in 4/4 time. So we've got 4 beats here to represent the length of a measure. Our first primary task is simply to count along with this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Every time that first beat comes along, that's a 1, and then we just count to 4, right? So we're going to let it go once, and then we're going to try to do it along with it. It's easy stuff. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? When you count from 1 to 4, that's a measure in 4/4 time. Again, we're not going to dive too deeply into any of that stuff, but that's our primary task, to be able to count along with this metronome and feel that group of 4 beats. That's a measure. Okay, most music that we hear moves in chunks of measures. In other words, sections of multiple measures, like maybe phrases or sections they're referred to. The most common section lengths are 2 bars, 4 bars, 8 bars. There are tons of exceptions, but again, we're just looking to lock into the basics here. So what we're going to do is we're going to count to 4, but we're going to track 4 measures. So every time we come around to that yellow dot, we're going to change the number to reflect the number of measures. In other words, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then when we come around again, it'll be 2, 2, 3, 4. Then 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. And that'll be a chunk of 4 bars, 4 measures, okay? We're going to let it go once through, and then we're going to give it a shot here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. That's a group of 4 bars, right? Classically, music moves in those types of chunks, so being able to count along and know what measure we're on is going to be super important when we use this tool to practice with. All right, now we're going to get our body involved here. Ultimately, we're going to be playing an instrument. We're going to be playing that instrument with our hands. Eventually, we'll want to take this idea of internalizing the beat and put it in our legs to tap our feet or whatever. I've got a couple of examples of subdivisions. These are basically quarter notes and eighth notes. These notes have different values in time. This quarter note simply counts along with the beat. In other words, every single time the beat moves along, we're counting 1 quarter note. And what we're going to do here is tap along with the metronome. Let me demonstrate for you. I'm going to let it go once, and then we're going to tap along. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pretty easy, right? But now we're counting and we're also tapping. We're pulling the measurement of time through our bodies as well. This is really important. So that's just quarter notes. Every one of those gets a single beat. Eighth notes are twice as fast, so they get a half a beat. In other words, when we hear these quarter notes go by, there's an eighth note in between each one. And this is counted like this: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, right? So this is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, right? Whereas this is just 1, 2, 3, 4. So let me show you how to count these. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So those are basically our first 2 subdivisions. Dividing that measure into 4 beats was easy, right? That's just counting on each one of the clicks. And then these eighth notes go twice as fast. Each one of these gets a half beat. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now we're going to mix eighth notes and quarter notes. This is the idea that we need to develop to be able to tap subdivisions along. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1. See what we're doing here? We're just mixing them up, right? When you can do this kind of thing, when you can get this skill with a metronome, tapping away and really keeping track, once you get that down, then you can add your instrument in and your cognitive load won't be as high. Plus, you'll understand the context of what's going on. What is this thing measuring? What should you be listening for, right, while you're playing your instrument? How is this guiding you through time? Try to master this type of thing before you use a metronome with your instrument. In fact, once we train ourselves like this, that's when the metronome becomes incredibly valuable. We can tighten up our rhythm. We can get our synchronization between our hands in order with the metronome. We can make great strides in our overall musicianship by learning to lock into the groove, and the metronome will do that for us once we understand how to use it. That tap pad PDF is available on my Patreon page. There's also a couple of drills there that you can do with a guitar in your lap to start working on those subdivisions. Head on over there if you want to grab those. As always, I hope you found this lesson interesting. I hope it was accessible for you. Above everything else, stay curious, and I'll see you next time.